brown pelicans in South Texas and prairie dogs out west. A couple of the places we'll visit this week as we go traveling Texas.
The Eyes of Texas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of The Eyes of Texas. I'm Ron Stone. We're glad to have you with us as we take this trip around the Lone Star State to see the sights and to meet the folks. We begin tonight at the southernmost tip of Texas to tell you a story that we hope will have a happy ending someday. It's a story dealing with people and an endangered species. For a very long time now, scientists, ecologists, and bridge engineers have been trying to figure out a way that the brown pelican can live in harmony with people on South Padre Island.
There are no bad guys in this story, only people trying to solve a problem that no one could have anticipated. Brown pelicans trying to fly over the causeway that links Port Isabel and South Padre Island during a stiff norther. Some of them can't make it. They come down on the bridge and are struck by cars and killed. Not great numbers of them, only a couple of dozen since the mid-'80s. But nobody wanted to see the birds injured, and the brown pelican is an endangered species. So all kinds of people jumped in to help find a solution.
The brown pelican winters in South Texas, and that's where the largest group of brown pelicans are found. It was noted by a large number of concerned citizens and other public officials that during certain weather conditions, at certain times of the year in the winter, pelicans were being killed on the Queen Isabel Causeway. The Highway Department, working with the Texas Transportation Institute, decided that it was appropriate that we look into the biological as well as the physical causes of this mortality.
Other birds, such as seagulls, encounter difficulties when facing a stiff north wind, but the consequences are not the same as those experienced by brown pelicans. Several people at Texas A&M University at College Station, including Professor of Wildlife Fishery Sciences Doug Slack and Texas Transportation Institute engineer Ray James, were part of the group that studied the problem. And Doug admits that one reason there is a problem is that brown pelicans are doing well. They are back in good numbers all along the coast. From Miami to Brownsville and across to San Diego, you can expect to see brown pelicans on pilings.
About 3 decades ago, in the early 1960s, we began to lose our pelicans in Texas. And in fact, by the mid-1970s, we were down to, in the winter, literally no brown pelicans being seen at all. Our sister state to the east, Louisiana, in fact, is the brown pelican state. And in the early 1970s, there were no brown pelicans in the state, which is kind of embarrassing to have a state bird not even being present anymore. But in our situation now, things have begun to improve. And now that situation has been turned around dramatically.
Ray James and his students studied effects on models of the bridge in wind tunnel tests, knowing the problem occurs only when the birds buck a north wind when flying over the bridge.
And encounter a region of turbulent air with some downwash over the bridge deck and subsequently be struck by automobiles. The bridge is heavily traveled.
Brown pelicans like to feed in the deeper waters because they dive, whereas a white pelican just kind of sort of like a dabbling duck.
Texas Parks and Wildlife game biologist Gary Waggerman gathered volunteers to help with the study. They were his stormtroopers.
And when there's a north wind, sort of like an airplane, there's a certain amount of turbulence. The higher the wind, the more the turbulence. And when those birds get down into that turbulent air, they get pulled down right onto the bridge. And it's only during those anywhere 4 to 8 times that we may get a cold front blowing through it in the evening that gives the birds a problem.
It was Mary Lou Campbell and a few others who brought the pelican's plight to the attention of wildlife and highway people. Mary Lou has been a beach observer most of her life and sort of adopted the brown pelicans when she started noticing their return to Texas coastal waters a few years ago.
There's a marina back there that has a breakwater where they can get up and loaf and observe fish and kind of digest and do what pelicans do. And I'm not aware of what all they do, but they do spend a lot of time sitting around and loafing and appearing to be visiting with each other. This is a very prolific little inlet right here, a little cove of the Laguna Madre, and there's very good fishing out there, both for fishermen and for the birds. So they get in there and feed, and then when it's time to go home in the late afternoon, they have to fly back over this bridge. If the weather's good, no problem, but if the north wind comes, that makes it doubly hard for them to get into the bridge. Plus, they have filled themselves full, and they're carrying quite a load, and they're just not able to make it sometimes. Some of those young birds, strangely enough, will fly under the bridge. The older ones will not. It's quite a tall bridge, it would seem to me, and the pelican skims the water many, many times, you know. But why they don't fly under the bridge, I don't know.
There have been several proposed solutions to the problem, including the construction of an artificial roosting site south of the bridge. But no one knows whether the birds would go for that. So for now, the solution of choice appears to be motorist education, signs warning them of the possibility of pelicans on the bridge, and perhaps slower speed limits, down to maybe 40 or 45, at least in the evenings during the winter. And maybe one day we'll know why the older birds don't like to fly under the bridge during a norther.
There that sucker is. Well, I'm not much of a golfer, but for quite a while now we've had a special relationship with the folks at Coldspring up in San Jacinto County. We got together and started playing a golf tournament some years ago, just a bunch of friends out at Cape Royale trying to have some fun and raise some money for their Heritage Society. It's worked out pretty well, and we thought you might like to see where the money goes.
San Jacinto is one of the most historic counties in the state. Years ago, the folks here put together a coalition of young people and senior citizens who restored the old jail building and turned it into a museum. The 1887 relic was just wasting away. Today, it houses a record of the county's history and is the focal point of the Old Town Square, where the preservation of history is a routine thing nowadays. There is a post office from Camilla, a corn crib from Ellisor, and the Jackson General Store from the Magnolia community. But the structure that's been the biggest attraction here lately is a schoolhouse.
This is a schoolhouse that was built in 1926, and it came from the town of Old Waverly. It was used as a school there up through the 1940s, 50s, and then it was used as a voting place after that until around 1981. It was bought by Mr. and Mrs. Harold French and moved to their farm, and they donated it to the San Jacinto County Historical Commission.
It was no easy task getting this building to this spot, and it was several years in restoration. But the classrooms are full again today. Not with youngsters, though, with merchandise.
Pat, here's your angel.
Yes! This past year, we fortunately could restore it, and we added ceiling fans, and then we added heating, and rented the spaces out to vendors who have antiques, collectibles, arts, and crafts. So it's been really great. We've had quite a crowd up here because of it.
The exterior paint has changed, but little else has changed in the old schoolhouse. The floors are original. The walls are the same as they were when children used the building. But today, the schoolhouse is a co-op where East Texas artisans sell pieces of Texas history. The Coldspring School Co-op is open afternoons every Friday and Saturday and has given life to the once quiet town square.
It's too bad for your hair.
Too bad for my hair. You can take this one, it's got berries or something on it.
This looks like a lampshade.
And the Heritage Society already has its eyes on another old schoolhouse. They'd like to double the size of this one and double the crowds. The money they take in today helps them save this county's rich history.
I think it's extremely important to preserve anything from our past, to remind all the people of the way it used to be. It's part of our heritage, our history.
Yeah.
You take care.
You too, Sandy. Nice to see you.
See you later.
Okay.
Isn't that pretty on?
Well, you probably figured out by now that this is not exactly cowboy country, but this is a story about a cowboy. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. The pay's not very good, the hours are long, the work is terribly hard, and I guess it gets even harder if you're the one who has to cook for all the other cowboys.
It is one more day in the wide open West for 76-year-old Ramon Hartnett of Fort Davis. He's a relic of the past. Some even say he has lived too long. Ramon is from another generation. He spent most of his life as an honest-to-goodness cowboy.
I work in one ranch over here. It used to be Merrill's. 21 year and a half. You know how many times my ribs? 8 times broke. Both hand, one leg broke. Hurt, I hurt more than 100 times the horses. But when you like it, horses, you like it. Same if you like to play football, you're not going to get hurt. You like it, you like it. That's the same to me, I think. Because I've got a lot of hurt.
Ramon never went to school. He started cowboying when he was 8 years old. When his broken bones told him to stop it, he learned how to cook and has been a chuck wagon cook since then. He remembers those first few years as the stuff of legends. He drove a mule-driven wagon from campsite to campsite, following the cowboys. Today, Ramon and his family of workers are more sophisticated. Their chuck wagon is on air-inflated tires. They pull it behind a pickup and bring their own water on a separate truck. But the work is still the same, and the hours are still just as long. They get up at sunrise and spend a whole day cooking and cleaning. In the old days, Ramon was on the road year-round. Today, in his retirement, he cooks about 50 days a year. Just long enough, he says, to earn a little extra money and to get away from home so he and the missus don't argue so much.
Sí, no, sí, ya le echamos ahí. La verdad que era la piernota él que te estaba viendo, ¿verdad? Los brazotes, ¿verdad? Sí, no, sí.
Coffee!
Mostly he cooks for cowboy roundups, just like in those early years. But today, Ramon is cooking for a bunch of summer camp kids at Prude Ranch outside Fort Davis. No matter where he is, though, the food is the same.
Green beans, hominy, potatoes, flour, beans, meat, everything.
He is cooking or cleaning or cutting or baking every minute of the day. But at least for the summer camp youngsters, he doesn't have to move around so much. At those roundups, there was more moving than cooking.
Oh, yes. We move 2-3 times a day. Breakfast over here, move. Go lunch over yonder, eat lunch and move. Eat supper and breakfast and move. Cook. That's the way it goes. It runs up.
Okay, if you all will come around over here where Betty is, parents can get their tickets and kids can just get in line when they're ready. If you bought tickets right now, they're good here, okay?
For these youngsters, eating out is a nice event. And it'll be years before they realize just how special this event was. Many of them are so wrapped up in the food and the scenery that they don't even notice that little old man in the background who is still working, still turning out bowls of food, and still cleaning pots and pans. But to those of us who have been on one of these trips before, Ramon Hartnett is by all means the main attraction. He's one of the last chuck wagon cooks in the country, living out his life the way he started it, working hard to the very end, and enjoying it all the way.
Let's talk about something cute now that you'll find in Lubbock and in Odessa and in Snyder. Prairie dogs. Prairie dogs aren't dogs at all. Of course, they're rodents, more akin to the woodchuck than anything else, perhaps. Oh, they do bark, sort of. And they live on the prairie, or they used to. Some have a pretty cushy life in the city these days, in prairie dog towns, in parks, like McKenzie State Park in Lubbock, and Prairie Pete Park in Odessa, and Toll Memorial Park in Snyder. They're cute little things. Kids love them, but they are not universally appreciated. They once burrowed their way through the plains from Texas to Canada and west to the Rocky Mountains. The problem is they eat the same thing cows do, and their holes are hazardous to livestock. A horse can easily break a leg in one of them. So in 1903, the Texas legislature cleared the way to poison the little critters, and that almost wiped them out. So towns like Snyder, Lubbock, and Odessa set aside little pieces of land for the prairie dogs to dig and live in. City officials don't like to talk about it, but once in a while they do have to weed them out one way or the other, or the prairie dogs will stray beyond the confines of their allotted space. These city dwellers are not overly concerned about the presence of humans. They have been known to accept a handout, but beware, they have also been known to bite the hand that feeds them. Prairie dogs. The tourists love them, but the farmers really hate them. Still, you can see all you want in those prairie dog towns. Well, that's this week's edition of the Eyes of Texas. Let me remind you one more time, if you'd like to join us to play a little golf in the Eyes of Texas Golf Tournament, you call Ron Phillips at Cape Royale on Lake Livingston. The tournament is set for the weekend of the 25th. Like to see you there to have some fun and help that historical foundation there in San Jacinto County. That's Eyes of Texas for this week. I'll see you next week if I can find that ball that I hit over there somewhere. I thought it bounced here. Where'd that sucker go?
There's a little bit of everything in Texas. Just look around and you'll see. There's a little bit of everything in Texas, and a whole lot of Texas in me. There's a little bit of everything in Texas, and really I'm not bragging, you see. There's a little bit of everything in Texas, and a whole lot of Texas in me. And a whole lot of Texas in me.
The Eyes of Texas is available for home or instructional use. For information on purchasing a copy, write Channel 2 Video Services, P.O. Box 2222, Houston 77252.
The Eyes of Texas.
Traveling Texas, been riding